I know when I got done yesterday, after listening to all of you and chatting with all of you, my mind was just reeling, and it was just like pop, 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 pop. And I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but Kristen and I spoke a little bit about it. We realized that maybe we need to talk a little bit about like where we've come so far, and like, are there questions you have, or like, what is your learning? So yeah, it is a lot. It is definitely a lot, but you know, looking at, like, has your perspective of community partnerships changed since you started this training? You know, do you understand like the place-based connection to all of this? This is where I'm just going to start off to give you an idea of where my mind went, right? So as I was driving home, I was thinking about that lovely video of the school in Nashville. And then my mind went to, wow, all of those kids were really engaged, right? And I remember some people here saying, how do you get kids engaged, right? Well, all those kids were really engaged. And I thought, well, why were they engaged? Well, it was they were interested in the topic, and it was a local topic, right? There was the one girl who's like, oh, I never knew Nashville was important for anything other than country music, right? It kind of gave them a purpose, but it was based in their local community. And I think that's why it was so good. It was place-based. And when you think about it, and my head next went to, oh, we're doing a manufacturing course. Oh yeah, those are all in their places. So it is place-based learning. So hopefully some of that will come with it as well. And then I thought, well, you know, the real thing is to get the students involved in solving a real problem with that manufacturer, or having to realize that what they're doing has some real meaning within their community. That's where my train of thought went. So I'm just curious to see where your trains of thought went. And feel free to just unmic and chat.
I actually, I've been really guilty, and I shared this with my breakout group. I've been really guilty of just doing the guest speaker thing, bringing people in and getting really excited about the information they give, and then just trying to apply it myself in my classroom. So my, I guess, perspective has really changed in that I want this to be more of a partnership thing. I want them to come in and work with my students as well. And I was really inspired by the kitchen challenge, the farm to table challenge, because I feel like that's very applicable to my age group. Kids get really excited about food. So yesterday, in thinking about my community partner, I went straight to my human body unit that I have to teach in reading. And I thought, okay, what could I do here? And I actually contacted a local bakery who is she's really trying to work on getting her name out into the community and things. And I thought, you know, I have a child with dietary needs. And so we're going to actually partner in coming up with a plan for our students to develop some gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, low sugar options, learning how she does that and how that might change her recipes, things like that. So I'm really excited about making that connection with their human body reading unit that we do, and a community partner. So,
well, and I thought
I'd never thought of that as manufacturing ever until I was like, wait a minute, that is a product that starts here and has to go through a process. And so
Matt brought that up in one of the chats too, which I thought was interesting. Somebody asked him, like, what are some basic math skills that we can do, especially with students who aren't confident in math and realize that manufacturing does involve math. And I saw one of his things was like, bake a cake, you know, like have them measure out ingredients. So I thought it was really interesting to hear that from a manufacturer, because again, I think we have this perspective of it's gears, lasers, and machines, and it really does start with something so basic and so small in our minds. So I definitely thought that was interesting that Matt pointed that out as well. Other feedback about the manufacturer panel that you just did, your ideas on the course so far, even like, are there things that we can help with, or, you know, things you want more information on?
Sandy, yesterday in our breakout group, we talked about, I have a group of 8th graders that I teach for 9 weeks. And a topic that came up was what I'm passionate about and what I love to learn about. And with community partners and things that I have brought into the classroom for my students isn't exactly what they love. right? And that they're passionate about too. So I think for me, like, I love when Matt talked about manufacturing and fabricating the stands for the story time in the park, right? And they went through the engineering design process doing that. That's like the biggest part that I get stuck with, because I want to make it real world relevant for my kids. And I want them to identify, or I want a partnership that we can use engineering design process to solve the problem with. Does that make sense? So it's trying, it's sort of like, I don't know if I have to go to like an interest inventory with my students, or like I've been in a local fabrication, super small, you know, fabrication business with my students, and they've been amazing with them. And I feel like the partnership, you know, they did it like 2 or 3 years with me, and then COVID hit, and then they're like, okay, you know, we did our time sort of, and like, we don't really want to, you know, partner anymore, or whatever it might be. But I think that's my roadblock, is making it real world relevant for, especially for teenagers, because they're always like, how is this affecting me? What am I making better? What is my product? You know, how is it fitting in the real world, in our school, in our community? So I think finding like a partnership that they can see their result through engineering design process. So I don't know, I had like partnerships in mind, even if it's like the Humane Society, and creating like some type of collection box for supplies for the Humane Society, whatever it is. And then I can reach out to a local manufacturer maybe to help us design the boxes or whatever it might be. But right now, that is like my biggest roadblock. Like, I had resources yesterday that I reached out to for our interview and everything. It's just making my 8th graders do the whole buy-in, right? Because when I'm passionate about water quality, they're not, right? Or if I'm passionate about like a butterfly garden, you know, and pollinators, and relating that to STEM and what we can engineer to put for that, they're not. So any suggestions on those?
Well, I will say that, so when we first started our STEM school, we had students that were 8th graders that had never had any STEM pedagogy. They never had the design cycle. They didn't know what a problem-based learning was. They were just very traditional, you know, in-seat learners. And one of the things that I did, and this is just a thought, is we walked around our building. And we started talking about things they didn't like in our building. And we started talking about, oh, we have this courtyard and it's really gross. And we look at it every single day when we walk by to lunch. You know, they were walking down the hall and they're like, oh, the bathrooms are really boring. It looks like they were, you know, painted in 1952. And it's like, well, what would you want in a bathroom? And then they started talking about charging stations, and they wanted to have a spot where they could do selfies. This is obviously quite a few years ago. So we kind of did a survey of our building. And then what I did was I took some of those partners that I knew of that I could bring in that could help enhance those things. So the remake of our courtyard was not driven by me and the fact that I maybe wanted a pollinator garden, right? Or a stream put into that part. We actually ended up with a chicken coop in it. It was driven more by the students. And it was like, we started investigating what we could put into that. And then I came in and said, oh, well, I know somebody at Franklin Park Conservatory in Columbus who's a master gardener. Would you be interested in having them come out? And they were like, yes, let's do this. So really allowing them to pick the problem and then trying to find the partner that could come in to help enhance what they wanted to do. If I had started off with, I really want to update the courtyard, it would have been my project. But because they were the ones who were like, oh, yes, that is a problem. After we walked the school, that's where we went. And we took the 5 top problems. Each group had to pick one that they wanted to work on. We came back in, we did a debrief, which projects were most reasonable, which ones could we work on the best. The people whose projects weren't chosen found spots in the projects that were chosen. And then we went forward from there. So it was a little bit different of a perspective of finding the partner. Like, I had a list of partners that I could maybe call, but having the students pick the project first and then getting their buy-in. That worked really well with me for the 8th graders.
That's awesome. Thank you for that suggestion. I appreciate it.
And I have not been following the chat, so I apologize. Yeah, you do that with the bridge, yeah, with the design challenge. So Ohio does design challenge a little bit differently than Tennessee. So we are definitely more of a year-long project, but Tennessee, I'm hoping that your teachers know this as well. Kristen, I think you might be able to speak to this a little bit better. We do our design challenge on a basically a 9-month basis, and it's meant to help those students get into some of those soft skills and to really dig in and get that grit that the manufacturing process was talking about, and failing to solve a real world problem, but they learn all of those design process skills along the way. And Kristen, I think yours is more online based. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we did kind of switch over to an online base last year, and it worked so well that we did do it again this year. So our design challenge comes out once a year, and it is a topic. I think we do the same topic though, don't we?
We typically do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do the same topic. This past year, it was on infrastructure. So students were given a specific prompt, but then they had free reign on how they solved the problem specifically in their community. And we did like a Shark Tank. So students, they could work it individually, they could work in teams, and they came on and presented to a panel. And then if they made it past that panel, then they came on and presented to state representatives, and then they get recognized at our summit.
Which was very cool. I was lucky to be at their summit this year to watch those schools be recognized. Question here from Jen: do you recommend allowing more involvement in picking the question? If you're looking for student voice and choice, absolutely. If you can give them voice and choice when picking the question, then that is very helpful. Many times when we would sit down as a staff over the summer, we would decide like what was something that we were passionate about, but what was a unit that we could get a lot, because ours were all PBLs. It was language arts, math, science, and social studies were all embedded. And we were fortunate that we had a schedule that would allow us kids could go to whatever room they needed help with when we were doing our PBLs. Some of our PBLs were predetermined, but we tried to give them student voice and choice in the middle of it. So that maybe they didn't get to pick the overall arching theme, but we had an essential question that they had to answer, and they had their choice in how they answered that essential question. So so that was how we put the voice and choice into it. If you can allow them to pick their problem, that's great. I know a lot of times there needs to be a lot of scaffolding. Resource for the design challenge in Ohio, Jen. I will actually have that ready for you tomorrow. Next year's design challenge is already planned. It goes K-12, and we have done it virtual in the past. We haven't quite figured out what we're doing for next year. So what else?
Would you want to give us a little taste of what the design challenge is?
Oh, sure. For Ohio for next year. No, I haven't gotten a hold of Misty yet in Tennessee. So we try to base them on the UN global. Oh, the word is escaping me. On the UN global. Help me, Kristen. What's the word? What'd you say, Noah?
Could come off mode. Sustainability goals. You know.
Thank you. The sustainability goals. Thank you so much.
My mute button.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Noah. I appreciate that. So next year's design challenge is based on security, right? And what we can do to make our world secure. So people could look at cybersecurity. People could look at housing security. You'd look at security, like different resources that are available for people after disaster. So it's basically coming up with a way to improve security for your community or your space. But I will have the actual handout for you tomorrow if you'd like to see that for Ohio.
Sandy, I just wanted to bring a little bit of clarity to my comment in the chat. So we do the more like 9 months long design challenge, but I like to do like mini design challenges, especially for incoming freshmen who have no idea what the design challenge is or like the design cycle, have never been exposed to that. So our bridge program is focused on like sort of introducing students to that.
Right, and mini design challenge too. Those are great ways to get your students engaged at the beginning of your PBL unit. So, if you can come up with a mini challenge that just takes a class period or maybe a couple days just to get their minds working before you actually introduce the essential question you're going to be solving or what the problem is that you're going to be looking at, that's a great way to get students to engage almost immediately in those things.
Yeah.
Lots of wonderful conversation. Yes, Mary?
Actually, I was going to ask Noah because I know you had said the other day about being the person of mini design challenges. I do a lot of them. Most of them I've made up. Would you be willing to share some of, since you sounds like you probably have quite a few? Would you be able to share some of those?
Yeah, for sure. One of them, the one that I did last year is actually very similar to what Sandy was talking about, where it's like it's focused on like a specific aspect of school and like how can we change some aspect of this specific school to make it more efficient or accessible for students. So yeah.
Yeah,
That
would,
reminds me, I'll create a folder in our shared folder of just like participant resources. And so if you are willing to share any of your resources, drop it in that folder so that this cohort can access it.
So, and this is, I know this is off topic, but this is next year's challenge for Ohio. And again, I don't have Tennessee's. I haven't gone through this with the person who's in charge of it for Tennessee, but I know that this is what we have chosen for Ohio. So let me see if I can get it to
I'll
enter.
try to get some insight from Tennessee.
That's fine. That's fine. It's a little early for most of us. We typically don't do this until August. So this year for Ohio, we knew that there were schools that were using this for their planning for the summer. So we wanted to make sure that we got them a head start on that in May. So my apologies for you in Tennessee. This is not meant to be just Ohio slanted, but it gives you an idea of what it looks like too. All right. Anything else before we move on? Wonderful. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to actually talk about looking at learning through different lenses, right? So we are, up till this point, like we've talked about manufacturers, we talked about developing community partners. Today, we're going to actually like look at some PBLs. And when we're looking at the PBLs, we want to use a couple different lenses, right? We want to look at them from different directions. So just like if you look at a lesson from a teacher perspective or a student perspective, it's going to have a very different feel. So we want to talk a little bit about the student learning perspective, right? So teacher is facilitator, student is learner. So we're going to watch this short video and we're going to watch for the ways that the students drive their learning. This was also important because we had a lot of people who are like, how do you get your students to engage? So we really wanted to make sure that we address that. So listen to for what vocabulary is used, and importantly, listen for what is not used, right? And what is an outcome of this type of inquiry? So think of these two questions as we watch this video.
Cannot find my mute button.
So when you're working on projects and you really have student-driven lessons, it can be scary because you don't feel like you're in control, but you really are. If you are planning the right way ahead of time, you are scaffolding every single aspect of that lesson and what the students are doing. You may say to yourself, it's way too much. There's too much to do.
Can you stop for a
But
minute?
that hard work in the beginning allows it to be completely student-driven, and they.
Can you try to put the link into your page and then just show it from its own tab? And see if that works. Sorry, everyone. You know the learning curve: fail fast and fail forward, right?
Well, yeah, and you all might want to turn off your videos during this. So I heard somebody say that helped.
So when you're working on projects and you really have student-driven lessons, it can be scary because you don't feel like you're in control, but you really are. If you are planning the right way ahead of time, you are scaffolding every single aspect of that lesson and what you're doing. You may say to yourself, it's way too.
On my end, sitting in my chair, it flows very nicely.
Okay, is anybody else having breaks in their video?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so why don't we'll put the link in the chat. why don't you go out and watch the video independently so that you don't have this issue? And then we will come back in. I believe this video, it's only 3 minutes long. So we'll give you 5 minutes to get it into yours, watch it, and then just come back to class. How does that work?
Okay, that works fine.
All right, when you're back, please just type here in the chat so I know if everyone is back yet or not. Still waiting for a few. If you've just come back in, please type here in the chat so that we know you're here. Still waiting on a few. And we're almost there. If you are just popped in, please type here in the chat just so we know that you're back and we're ready to go.
Ronald and Yvonne are here. They private messaged me accidentally.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so
Yep.
that was just because I had people, I was interesting, right? So this is our deep dive. These are the things we learned from each other. So this was something I learned. I was 100% remote last school year. And one thing I learned is that I always, when I sent my students off to watch videos, I always started my video after everyone else had like 30 seconds to start theirs so that mine would end last. The other thing that I learned is that I have them type here in the chat. And as long as I knew how many students were in my class, I could just count down to see how many people just by number, and I would know that everybody had gotten back. So nice trick if you happen to have to go online again. So, so what vocabulary was used or was not used? Kristen, do you want to flop to the next slide? I think it's the next slide. Yeah, so what ideas, thoughts, what are you thinking? You can unmute, you can type in the chat.
I like the voice and choice that she started out with. Giving them a voice and a choice, or he or she started out with.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
I mean, just in general, a lot of question words were used, right? Versus statements.
I think somebody else said it in the chat, but given time for reflection, pausing where you need to and discussing all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like the self-assessment. That's always a big thing for students. They always worry about like what their grade is, but if they give it themselves, I think sometimes they're a little rougher than we are.
Mm-hmm.
So they put their standards up higher. So I've always noticed. So I really like that concept.
Yep, responsive, reflective. All right. What about direct instruction? Did you see any real direct instruction? Posting the learning targets.
Minimal.
Mm-hmm. Kind of minimal. Mm-hmm.
I noticed that when she did it, it was when they were doing the group reflection, and she noticed that if there was missing knowledge because they came back together and said, you know, was there something that you didn't work well? And they figured out, oh, we might need to know something about, you know, this. And that would be a place, and at least we do it that way. You stick a pin in that, kind of like, okay, there's something we're missing here. And that would be a content knowledge, a place to do, so fill in the gaps for all learners.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was just going to ask, like, what is an outcome of this type of inquiry? And definitely building curiosity is an outcome of this kind of thing. Having it being student driven, definitely. What did you notice about engagement? Because again, that was one of those key things that people brought up initially.
I loved how she built the students to discuss in groups. I try to do that with my seniors especially, and they don't know how to do it, and they're seniors in high school. And so that's one thing I really want to bring back to my own district is maybe we can start to teach students how to really reflect with their peers and have those conversations and talk about their learning, because they don't know how. It takes me about the whole month of September to teach them how to discuss in a group properly without getting off topic, and with also having an excitement for the learning. You could tell the kids just wanted to talk about what they were learning, and that made me excited. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I know for me personally, reflection was always something I struggled with when I was in the classroom, and it was more so time. Like I didn't make the time for the reflection to happen, or I didn't make the time for the reflection to happen authentically. So definitely going to be talking about that, especially as we go into thinking about rubrics tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Right. How to make these things authentic for the students and get them excited. Yeah, tracking their own learning on their targets, that's huge as well. Yeah, so just some more food for thought. Again, very student-centered learning. You know, the student is driving the course in this particular instance. All right. So again, we're trying to think about facilitating, not coaching. So there was some coaching, right? So coaching is to give them a specific skill that they maybe don't have, but definitely in this classroom, I think it was facilitation, right? The teacher was there to guide them and ask the questions, but not give them the answer. And I think this is a hard one too. I taught gifted for a couple of years, and they always wanted to know, well, what's the answer? Did I get it right? And they always got really upset with me when I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know the answer. You have to tell me the answer. So they have to just get used to that idea that there isn't maybe always one right, or that someone knows what is right. So notice that the teacher didn't direct anything. The students were in control of this room. And these are the 5 E's of inquiry, right? To engage the students with a challenge or a situation. This is where when you're doing your manufacturing course, right? To kind of go in with a question or an idea already. Students investigate the phenomenon. Prior knowledge is challenged. Ideas are created. Students explain the phenomena. New knowledge that is gained and applied. Then they apply their knowledge towards the situation, right? And they're deepening their understanding. And then students reflect on what they know in their learning process. And then they just keep going around and around and around until they've developed something that they feel confident in. So again, facilitating them to do these things, not coaching them on necessarily a specific skill.
Our panelists kind of touched on this a little bit today too. They talked about, I thought it was really interesting to hear a manufacturing company say that they fail every day. We had some discussion yesterday or the day before talking about how COVID really has kind of hindered that for us. Our students are scared to fail now, or they don't necessarily know how to fail. And, a panelist also pointed out something that really resonated with me was he talked about, being able to facilitate their own, taking ownership of that problem, like, yes, I failed. This is what I did wrong. This is how I'm going to move forward with it. So being able to facilitate that learning and that fail forward, I thought was really interesting. That, it was just, we were able to make connections all over the place once the panel helped put everything in perspective for us.
Right. Okay. So what we're going to do is in just a minute, we're going to hop into small groups. And when we hop into your small groups, and you all have them, interesting, Jason, that you say this, right? Sometimes I wish that soft skills were actually standards, so we would focus on them more. I am going to actually introduce you tomorrow to a rubric that works only on soft skills. It can be laid right on top of whatever it is that you're doing in your PBLs, but it works only on soft skills, right? So it's engaging collaboratively in a group. It has, I'm trying to think, and I'll have Kristen put the actual rubric into our shared documents, but it's something that I used when I was working in my Fab Lab, and we worked a lot on soft skills. So you will get that tomorrow as well. But what we're going to look at today is we're going to be looking, flipping all over here. There we go. We are going to be looking at a manufacturing PBL, right? And in your small group, you're going to open up this link, and Kristen's going to open it up for us right now, hopefully. There we go. And when you look at this, it is from, I believe this was from last year. Was this one from last year, Kristen?
Yeah. So this was, I took the name off of it, but this was a participant in the MEEP cohort last year.
Right. So what we're going to do when we look at this particular PBL, we want you to see like what sections of the PBL do you see student inquiry in? What are the students doing? Like what are they physically doing during this PBL? Where do you see gaps in student inquiry, right? So when you're looking for it to be like student focused and student driven, where do you see those gaps? And what would your recommendations be to be done differently? Right, so you're going to be popping out into your small groups, and this is what we would like your discussion based around. So everybody should probably open up this PBL, and I think we can put this in the chat, the link for it. There we go. Thank you. Just so everybody can open it up on their own, and Kristen's going to throw us all into breakout rooms. And let's see the time. Right now it's 11:20. So Kristen, what do you think? 20 minutes? We'll come back at 11:45. Okay. And we'll have a big group discussion. Make sure you pick someone to be your speaker for your group when we come back. All right. All right. We'll see you in a bit.
upload your PBL? Thank you. I'm the worst at recording, so I'm so sorry if you wanted any of these. But good news is the manufacturing panel is recorded, so I'll make sure to put that in the Google Drive so you can go back and watch the panel. Please don't be embarrassed by this. We all have admitted that we need improvement when it comes to that community partner lens. We need improvement when it comes to that student inquiry lens. So this is an opportunity for us to grow and glow. So I just want to start by preferencing that. There is no shame in our game. All right, so with the edX activity, we're going to be reviewing, revising, and revamping an existing PBL that you have personally. Be sure that you, just like today, be sure that you have a hard copy of that PBL, because once your small group kind of starts highlighting and commenting on stuff, we want to make sure that you have a hard copy for yourself as you go forth with that. And so today we are going to ask you to go ahead and upload that PBL before you even walk away from your computer today. And I'm going to go inside edX here in just a second and kind of show you, walk through that process just a little bit, especially if none of us have ever used edX before. It can be a little bit of a confusing platform. So we will be sharing a PBL via link, just like we've done throughout the day today. So make sure that you have a shareable link for the PBL to be able to be opened. We do want to keep in mind that as you're completing feedback, so we're going to ask you to complete feedback for 2 other of your small group members at your choosing. If you want to comment on all of your small groups are small. So if you wanted to do that, that's fine. But we do ask you to, be authentic in your feedback. Saying nice job, like that doesn't do anything for me. I don't learn from that. So let's just make sure that as we are completing this, that we are providing our group, our small group, with authentic feedback. All right, let's go into edX real quick. So when I log into edX, I'm going to see an introduction and an activity. So when I click on expectations and requirements, it's going to break down a little bit of what it wants me to do. Sorry, security. So it's going to say, hey, this activity is designed to develop and strengthen my PBL lens through the lens of a facilitator. So we've been talking all week about coaching and facilitating and moving into that. We've asked that the PBL is completed by you. Now, some of us may be art, library, some of us may be in a special class, but the PBL might be something that I have contributed to. So it might have other standards or other links. And even if you wanted to put that in the top of your PBL so that others know, like, hey, this PBL, I was a contributor to this PBL. That way your small group might know that other people were also involved in the planning of this. So again, I put it again there again, saying nice work or nice job is not authentic feedback. So make sure that we are providing that authentic improvement. We always are constantly working through the design cycle. So this is for you. This is to better the PBLs that we are sharing with our students. So after I've read the activities and expectations, I can hit next, maybe. So it tells you you're going to provide feedback to 2 other cohort members. You're going to review their PBL through the lens of a facilitator and provide that authentic audience. Thinking about how they've developed materials, what their rubric looks like, what their assessment opportunities are, etc. And then the last page will actually get us to being able to upload that PBL. So I'm just going to skip right down to the bottom. Oh, look at this. It's already been happening. But again, here are just examples of how to do it. I click specifically add a post. I'm going to title my post whatever my PBL name is. I'm going to say my PBL is about this. Hope you give me some good feedback. And then I'm going to copy and paste it in there. And then I'm going to hit submit. Does anybody have any questions about this? Anybody struggling getting in? Anything like that?
Does everybody
Great.
know who their group
You
members
can,
are?
yeah, if you don't remember who your small group members are, I sent an email on Monday that also had an Excel spreadsheet of your small groups in it. But I see that there are like 2 comments on it. So if you are, this is a discussion board. So if you comment directly on it, great, everyone can see it. If you open up their link and comment directly on their PBL, that's fine too. So Sandy and I can see both of those actions happening. Of
So
course,
Kristen, I'm sorry, the
looked at it
question
as
is, do you copy and paste the unit or do you attach it?
you copy and paste. So see, oh, as far as like once I get in, I would have.
Jason, can you clarify your
See,
question?
I can already open up this PBL.
Right, Jason, can you clarify your question for us?
No, I see now that you just want to put the link in there. I didn't see that originally.
Yeah.
So I thought you just wanted us to
Okay.
copy the whole thing and then paste it in the post.
Yeah, just the link will be sufficient there. So I can click on this and blah, blah, blah. All right. So that is today's activity as far as what you need to do later on this afternoon. Do try to go ahead and upload your PBL before you sign off today. That way, if there are people who are just trying to knock this out, that their small group PBL option is there as well. So when we think ahead about homework, so we're down to tomorrow is our last day. As far as the community partner interview, remember we would love that in the Google Drive folder by Friday. The review, revise activity, and edX, we would like that complete by the beginning of class tomorrow. So just try to upload your PBL to this discussion board before you sign off today so that others are able to comment. You are going to be providing feedback to 2 other small group members. If you choose to do more, that is perfectly fine by me. The other thing that I wanted to point out is tomorrow we all are meeting here first. I mean, only, not first, only. So we are not meeting with 101 tomorrow. So you should have, in fact, let me just put it in the chat, just so we don't have any worrisome.
Catherine, which discussion board are you speaking of? Are you talking about when you give the feedback on your unit?
I'm just like where to even upload my PBL. I probably have to go back and dig through the emails and find it, but didn't know if we just had like a quick link.
I believe it's on your course syllabus.
Well, there can be a quick link. If you click here, if you click on week 1 edX, this will automatically take you to the edX course that you're enrolled in. And so this page should come up first for you. And you're actually uploading your PBL to the discussion board. So where it says reflecting on existing PBLs, you open that up. You can scroll down here to the bottom where it says add post. And this is where you'll actually be linking in your PBLs. So if I wanted to link in the PBL that we did today, I would just simply link it in, entitle it, this is my PBL. I would hit submit. So now my post is in here for others to be able to review. So you would click on that and there's my post, there's my lesson. So it's just a link. Does that make sense?
So is that link on your slideshow? Is that
Yes, it was on the slideshow that was shared with you. And if you need to stay a little bit later, that's fine. We're here. We can help you. That's not a big deal. So we will, we'll walk people through it individually if needed.
Yeah, let me give you a direct link in the chat to the text.
And do know also while we're getting this link, if you could open up the slideshows that were on your syllabus, all of the links are embedded into that slideshow as well. So just for future reference, if there were things you wanted to go back, or if you were doing a PD at your school and you wanted to show one of the videos, you could go in and find those there very easily.
Yeah. So this link that I just put in the chat will take you directly to the course that you are, I mean, it's not a course because there's just one activity, but it'll take you directly to the activity that we have created. So when you click on this link, it might prompt you to sign in with the credentials that you created when you created your account. It's the same one that you used for your manufacturing course. And then I can just hit the first hyperlink here. I can hit expectations and requirements, and I can kind of read through. Again, this kind of helps walk me through it too. I hit next. If I hit next again, this front page right here really says like, hey, this is what you'll do step 1. This is what you'll do step 2. So if I read through this, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is actually going to tell me this is the steps to participating in the discussion board. So it's going to say, click on add post, follow the prompts that pop up, title it. So I've done a screenshot of an example. So you would title your PBL, you would actually link in, and this is showing a preview. So it actually makes my link hyperlink and clickable. And then I would hit submit. So then these are all just examples of what you're doing. And then once I go down here, this is the actual live discussion board. So this is where I would hit start adding my post.
Tara, that's a great idea. Post your PBL with your last name so they're easier to find.
All right, if you are good to go, you are free to go. If you need help, guidance, stay on, and I will help guide you. All right, Catherine, I see frustration all over your face. Tell me what I can do to help.
I can't find, like I'm logged into Battelle.
Okay.
I have my course catalog, it says course catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go to courses that I'm enrolled in.
Okay.
But then it just pulls up the course catalog again. So I'm sorry.
No,
I have
you're
a
fine.
computer and
Share your screen with me.